The first thing I heard was her laugh. Muffled. Sharp. From behind the barely cracked hotel room door. Then his voice, smooth, arrogant. You always this careless, or just when your husband's out of town? The laugh that followed wasn't nervous. It was practiced. Rehearsed. Like this wasn't the first time. I froze. Room 614. She told me she was in Sacramento. A weekend spa retreat with Lacey. But her car was parked outside. Same dent in the bumper I paid to fix. Same fuzzy dice I hated hanging from the mirror. And there, just outside the door, her red stilettos. The ones she said gave her blisters. The same ones she refused to wear around me for comfort. One was knocked on its side like it had been kicked off in a rush. Then came the sound I'll never forget. Not a moan. Not words. Just the rhythmic creak of a cheap hotel bed. Slow. Then faster. The kind of sound that wraps around your spine and squeezes. It didn't sound like cheating. It sounded like a celebration, one I wasn't invited to. Then silence. Her voice again. Soft. Satisfied. He still thinks we're fixing things. Poor guy. That's when I stopped being a husband. And became a punchline. The drive home was a blur. I don't remember traffic. I just remember her perfume. And that damn bed creaking in my skull. At the house, everything looked normal. Too normal. A wine glass in the sink. Her scarf tossed on the armrest. Pillows fluffed. Like she'd been here minutes ago, or like she never left. I walked into the bedroom. The bed was made. Perfectly. Corners tucked like a hotel. She never made the bed like that. I sat down. Hands shaking. On the vanity, her tablet. She always said, I have nothing to hide. Turns out, she just thought I'd never look. I opened the gallery. First photo, hotel mirror. Her. Dressed in something I'd never seen. Room dim. Timestamp, Saturday. Swipe. Chase. Shirtless. Brushing his teeth in the background. Swipe. A video. He leans into frame, kissing her shoulder. She giggles. You feel better than I expected. Swipe. A voice memo. Her whisper, he thinks I'm still in love with him. Another one, I could scream his name and Logan still wouldn't hear it. He's so numb. That one cracked something deep. When she walked in the next morning, she looked rested. Calm. She saw me at the kitchen table. Tablet open. Photos waiting. She didn't flinch. Didn't cry. Didn't even look ashamed. Just that one line. Why were you going through my stuff? You lied to me, I said. You dragged another man into our life. Into our bed. And now you're mad I found out? She crossed her arms. Cold. Mechanical. You've been boring for a long time, Logan. I needed something that made me feel alive. You were safe. Predictable. I needed fire. She didn't want love. She wanted fireworks. Even if it burned the whole house down. I stood. Walked into the bedroom. Started packing. You're just leaving, she asked. You already did, I said. You just left your things behind. As I passed her in the hallway, she muttered, you were never man enough for me. I stopped. Looked at her. Said nothing. Then left. Some men break. Some men burn. And some men build something from the ashes. I wasn't sure who I'd be. But I knew I wasn't coming back. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a little. I just lay there on the couch in my short-term rental, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow, like it was mocking me. The silence wasn't peace. It was surgical. Like someone had dissected my life and left the parts labeled, love, in a tray to dry. There was no smell of her shampoo in the bathroom. No dent in the mattress on the left side. No stupid reality show humming from the living room TV. Just me. And the sound of nothing. I sat up and opened the tablet again. Swiped through the photos one more time. Why? I don't know. Maybe to remind myself I wasn't crazy. That this happened. That she did this. There was one video I hadn't watched before. Short. 10 seconds. Chase was holding the camera. She leaned into him, eyes glassy, lips smudged with red. He said, "Say it." He didn't whisper it. He commanded it. Like this was a kink, not a crime. She giggled. Whispered, "He still thinks we're soulmates." Poor guy. Then they both laughed. That laugh. It was the same one I'd heard behind the hotel door. I closed the tablet, set it down like it was covered in acid. This wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. I wasn't just cheated on. I was written out of the script, mid-season, and replaced with a walking cologne ad. And me? I'd just been funding the show. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Her name on the screen. Again. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. "You overreacted. We can talk about this like adults. It doesn't have to be ugly." Ugly? You ambushed me at a restaurant, let a man threaten me to my face, and now you're worried about decorum? You lit the fire. You don't get to review how I burn. Day 4. She showed up at the door. No makeup. Jeans. An old sweater. Hair tied back like she was auditioning to be the girl I fell in love with. "Can we talk?" she asked. I didn't say a word. Just stepped aside. She walked in like nothing had exploded. Sat on the edge of the couch. Crossed her legs. Cool. Polished. Like a lawyer prepping for mediation. She spoke like a therapist billing by the hour. Like the damage was mine, and she just happened to be present. "You've had your tantrum," she said. "Now let's talk about what comes next." I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You're acting like you didn't nuke our entire life." She shrugged. "It wasn't working. You were distant. You didn't see me anymore." I laughed. Bitter. "I saw you. Every day. You just weren't there." She rolled her eyes. "Don't dramatize this. Then explain the hotel. The lingerie. The receipts. The videos. Explain why he felt so comfortable telling me to walk away from my own marriage." Her mouth twitched. "You're acting like I committed a crime." "No," I said. "You committed an assassination. You killed the man I was. And didn't even have the decency to bury him. And you did it with a smile. Like killing love was just another Tuesday." That got to her. She stood. Pacing now. Voice rising. "I needed more. You didn't give it. You were just existing. So instead of fixing it, you tore it down and blamed me for the debris." She moved to leave, grabbing her purse. But I stepped in front of her. "No. I don't still have a wife. I had a stranger with my last name who smiled while she disappeared piece by piece." She turned back, her face dark. "You think I didn't suffer? I spent years pretending I was happy. You didn't pretend, Logan. You lied." And then she said it. Calm. Controlled. "I've been with Chase for 6 months. And you know what? I feel alive again. Half a year. While I booked dinners, she booked rooms. While I paid bills, she moaned his name in my hoodie. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I just nodded. Good, I said. Then you don't need to know what I did yesterday. Her eyes narrowed. What did you do? I walked over to the drawer, pulled out a folder. Dropped it on the coffee table. Inside? Bank statements. Screenshots. Her hidden credit card. Messages to Chase about hiding money. She opened it. Flipped through. Her face went pale. What is this? Evidence, I said. I'm filing for divorce. And I'm taking everything I'm allowed to take. She reached for the folder again. I pulled it back. We're done, I said. And tell your alpha friend, never challenge a quiet man who's got nothing left to lose. Because some men cry. Some scream. But the ones who go quiet, they bury you with paperwork and never break eye contact. 3 days later, Chase showed up. I was walking to my car after work, just trying to make it home without another mental rerun, when I saw him, leaning against a black Dodge Charger like he was shooting a cologne ad for divorced gym rats. Sunglasses on. Tight shirt. Arms crossed like he'd been practicing the pose in a mirror. Logan, he called out, casual. Like we were college buddies meeting at a reunion. You got a second? I almost laughed. That's the problem with guys like Chase. They think life is a negotiation when they're the ones holding the match. I stopped. Looked him over. He wasn't worth a breath, but part of me needed to know what kind of idiot shows up after detonating someone's life and thinks a chat would fix it. What do you want, Chase? He shrugged. That slow, smug kind of shrug that says, I'm not scared of you. Yet. Look, man, he began, I didn't mean for things to blow up like this. I figured she'd end it clean. I didn't know she'd, you know. Set you up like that. You figured, I repeated. You figured you could slide into my life, my wife, and I'd just hand over the keys. You walked in like it was a takeover. But forgot I still had the keys to the vault. He raised his hands. Hey, I get it. You're pissed. But let's not pretend she didn't choose this. She did. And so did you. She betrayed a vow. You trespassed on a life. Neither of you leaves clean. I stepped in closer. Barely a foot between us. So whatever fantasy you had about replacing me, forget it. You're not the main act. You're the filler who got too comfortable. His smile twitched. Just a flicker, but I caught it. You should know she's thinking about moving in with me. Perfect. Just make sure she doesn't unpack the lies. They take up more space than furniture. He clenched his jaw. The fake zen started to crack. You don't scare me, Logan. I leaned in. Just enough. Voice low. Cold. Then you're dumber than you look. Because you should be scared. Not of what I might do. Of what I've already started. He flinched. Small. But enough. He thought this was a competition. But I wasn't playing chess. I was writing the ending. See, Chase was all chest and no core. Built for selfies, not for storms. And me? I wasn't a storm anymore. I was the stillness that comes after. The kind that makes people check behind them. I turned and walked away. I'd already done more damage with documents than I ever could with fists. Back at the rental, I sat down with my laptop and started combing through everything. Again. Every receipt. Every message. Every bank transfer she thought was invisible. Hotel charges. Uber rides. Lingerie bought with the joint credit card. Dinner bills signed with my name on the financial back end. She was sloppy. Arrogant. She left a trail wide enough for a blind man to follow. But the worst part? It wasn't the betrayal. It was how easy it came to her. Like it was instinct. Like she was always waiting for someone better to show up. Turns out, loyalty's just a costume some people wear until it itches. That night, she called. I let it ring. Twice. On the third time, I picked up. "Logan," she said. Her voice was soft. "No bite this time." "What?" "I didn't expect you to react like this." Of course she didn't. She thought I'd cry, beg, maybe break a plate. Instead, I filed motions and froze accounts. Like what? Like a man who got stabbed and didn't apologize for bleeding on the carpet. Silence. Then, quietly, "He's not who I thought he was." Translation: he didn't save her. Didn't fix it. Didn't handle pressure like a fantasy should. "I made a mistake," she whispered. I closed my eyes. Let the words hang there. Then answered. "No, Ashley. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. Burning dinner. You built this. Lie by lie. Room by room. You didn't fall into his bed, you dove." She tried to speak. I hung up. I didn't want her tears. I didn't need her guilt. She'd already twisted the knife. I wasn't about to hand her another one. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclamation. I wasn't rebuilding for her to notice. I was becoming a man she'd never recognize again. The divorce process moved faster than I expected. She didn't fear endings. She feared exposure. I think she realized something: the deeper we went, the more dirt would rise. And Ashley didn't want the truth crawling into the light. She wanted clean. Quiet. A whispered ending. But I wasn't about to let her write the epilogue where she got to be the heartbroken wife who just fell out of love. My lawyer dropped the folder on the table, thick. Timelines. Messages. Receipts. Everything indexed. Everything dated. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She negotiated. Cold. Efficient. Like she was downsizing, not divorcing. Liquidating a brand, not a bond. We had one in-person mediation. Neutral ground. A beige office with fake plants and free mints. She wore a navy suit. Hair tied back. No makeup. Just that old Ashley mask, the one she wore when she wanted to look trustworthy. Professional. Like someone who couldn't possibly be the woman in the hotel room, calling her husband a joke into another man's neck. She avoided eye contact most of the meeting. When she did look up, it wasn't hate. It was scanning. She was looking for weakness. A flicker. But all she saw was silence. And silence doesn't beg. The man she was searching for, the one who made her coffee and apologized even when she was wrong, he didn't make it to the meeting. He was gone. After it ended, I walked out without a word. No backward glance. No fake smile. I wasn't walking away from her. I was walking toward myself. One step at a time, away from fiction, toward fact. That night I poured a drink. Sat on the balcony. And felt something strange: stillness. Not peace. Not yet. But something close to the absence of noise. Then came the text. From Chase. Of all people. "You won. You happy now?" I stared at it. Smirked. Typed back. "Not yet. Because people like Chase and Ashley, they think they're the storm. But really, they're the wind. And the wind never wins against stone. And me? I'd become the mountain." A few days later, I got an email. Burner address. No subject line. Just a video file attached. Curiosity 1. I opened it. Chase. Pacing in what looked like a small apartment. Hair a mess. Face red. Yelling into his phone. You couldn't hear the other side, but it wasn't hard to guess who he was talking to. You ruined my life, he barked. I should have known better. You said this would be clean. Then he threw a dumbbell. Because when weak men break, they break loud. Yeah. That actually happened. Guess Charlotte, his wife, didn't take the envelope I mailed her very well. See, I printed everything. Photos. Messages. Timelines. No note. No return address. Just truth. Turns out, Charlotte didn't just leave him. She took the kids. Filed for legal separation. Posted the screenshots on her socials. Ashley's name was tagged. By morning, her inbox must have looked like a courtroom. And when she showed up at my door again, uninvited, bags under her eyes, lips trembling, I wasn't surprised. She wore one of my old hoodies like it was a spell. Like fabric could rewind time. Please, she whispered. Don't shut me out. I let her step inside. Let her talk. Let her cry. Chase, he said I ruined his life, she sobbed. He blocked me. He won't even talk to me. I gave up everything for him. I folded my arms. Leaned against the wall. No, Ashley. You gave up me. Now you get to live with that. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Don't. You can't just throw away 2 years, she said. I shook my head. You threw it away first. I just took out the trash. Then I handed her an envelope. Truth doesn't knock. It lands. She opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, a formal complaint I filed for emotional distress. And a signed letter from Tasha, the friend she claimed to be visiting the night she was actually with him. Confirming she hadn't seen Ashley in weeks. Her mouth fell open. You planned all this, she whispered. No, I said. You did. I just finished what you started. She stood there, holding the paper like it weighed more than she did. For the first time in months, she didn't have a script. Because when the mask cracks, all that's left is the silence you tried to fill with lies. She didn't leave right away. Just, stood there. Frozen. Looking around the room like maybe she could find the version of us we used to be hiding behind the furniture. But ghosts don't keep souvenirs. And love doesn't live in things. But there was nothing left here. Eventually, I opened the door. She moved slow, like walking through the wreckage of her own disaster. At the doorway, she paused. Her lips parted, eyes glassy, like she wanted to say something. Anything. I didn't wait. I closed the door. And locked it. Because some doors aren't shut on people. They're shut on the version of yourself that kept letting them in. Later that night, I poured myself a drink and opened the folder again. Everything was still there, the messages, the transfers, the bookings, the lingerie receipts. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about documentation. Because one day, someone would ask what happened. And I wanted proof, not poetry. So when she tried to rewrite the story as heartbreak instead of sabotage, I'd have every ugly truth printed and stamped. The next morning, I walked into my lawyer's office with a list. Names. Witnesses. Dates. Screenshots. A timeline so tight you could hang her alibi on it and watch it choke. No wiggle room. No gaslight. Just timestamps that bite. Not because I hated her. Because I refused to be erased. A week later, Charlotte messaged me. Just one line. Thank you. I needed the truth. That was all. She didn't owe me anything more. And honestly, that one sentence hit harder than any apology Ashley could have mustered through her crocodile tears. Sometimes, closure doesn't come with flowers. Sometimes it comes in the form of another broken person whispering, I see you now. Because validation from someone who's been burned carries more weight than any apology from the arsonist. After that, I started doing something I hadn't done in months. Sleeping. Not peacefully. Not deeply. But without waking up wondering why the other side of the bed felt like a glacier. I cleaned out the storage unit. Moved into a small loft near downtown. Exposed brick. Big windows. One squeaky floorboard. No ghosts. And for the first time in a long while, I sat in a room that didn't lie to me. I started running again. Not to outrun something, just to move. To let my lungs ache for reasons I chose. Because healing isn't passive. Sometimes it's sweat. Sometimes it's sore. But it's always earned. There's a strange kind of therapy in pain you create for yourself. Like reminding your body it still belongs to you. One morning, I passed a mirror in the hallway. Stopped. Stared. My face looked different. Sharper. Not better. Not happier. But mine again. The man in the glass didn't look like someone trying to hold it together. He looked like someone who already had. No cracks left to seal. Just a face that survived the collapse. She stopped calling after that. Stopped texting. I think she realized that no version of herself, not the tear-streaked ex, not the flirty voice from the past, not even the "I've changed" performance, was getting through anymore. I hadn't just closed the door. I'd bolted it. From the inside. But the world has a twisted sense of humor. One night, I ran into a mutual friend, James. We hadn't talked much since the fallout. Most people went silent. Didn't want to choose sides. But James wasn't built for pretending. He pulled me aside. Bought me a drink. Because truth, like whiskey, burns more when it's been aging in silence. He gave me that look people wear when they've been sitting on something for too long. She told people you were cold, he said. That you shut down years ago. That she tried to fix things. I laughed. Dry. Of course she did. She had some folks convinced, he added. But after Charlotte went public, the story changed. Fast. People were starting to see the cracks. Because you don't get to play victim when the receipts read like a confession. I nodded. She's got her story, I said. I've got mine. And the truth's got timestamps. Because stories bend. But receipts don't. By week 7, I started seeing a therapist. Nothing formal. No clipboard, no leather chair. Just a guy named Victor, ex-military, voice like gravel, eyes like he's already seen the ending of your story. He didn't ask me to unpack everything at once. What's the one thing you wish you could say without being interrupted? Not, how are you? Not, what happened? Just straight to the scar. It took me a while. But eventually, I said. She made me feel like I wasn't enough. Victor didn't flinch. Didn't nod. He just let it sit there, like silence had a job to do. Then he asked, and now? I looked him in the eye. Now I realize I was just too much for the wrong person. You can pour oceans into a desert and still be blamed for the drought. He smiled. A real one. Small. Like watching someone patch a hole in their own hull midstorm. That session stuck with me. Not because he said much. But because for once, I said it out loud, and didn't flinch. Because the thing about surviving betrayal isn't just surviving them. It's reclaiming you. Your worth. Your value. Your voice. One evening, I opened a box I hadn't touched since I moved out. Inside, anniversary cards. Old photos. Letters she wrote back when we were still pretending to be forever. I didn't cry. Didn't rage. I just tore them up, piece by piece. Because there's no nostalgia in lies. Just reruns of pain dressed as sentiment. Not out of anger. But because keeping them felt like feeding a fire that didn't deserve to burn anymore. You can't heal in a room filled with smoke. Especially when you're the one holding the match, for someone else's fire. That night, I slept with the windows open. No nightmares. No flashbacks. Just the sound of the city breathing, and my chest finally doing the same. There were still bad days. Of course. Days where I'd smell jasmine and want to punch the air. Or hear a voice that almost sounded like hers and freeze for half a second longer than I should. But I wasn't stuck in that chapter anymore. I stopped rereading. Started writing. I was already writing the next one. Week 10. I got a letter. A real one. Handwritten. Folded. Mailed. No return address. But I knew the handwriting before I even opened it. Lena's. It started simple. I know you probably won't read this. And if you do, you'll probably laugh or toss it before you reach the end. But I had to write it anyway. She went on. Regret. Shame. Spiral. The usual wreckage. Guilt always sounds prettier in cursive. But it stains the same. Said Chase had blocked her. Said no one was calling her back about jobs. Said some friends ghosted her. Others just disappeared. Said she missed our home. The sound of me humming while making coffee. The porch light I always left on. Then she wrote. I remember one night, early in our marriage, I had a nightmare. I woke up shaking. But you were already awake. Just holding me. Not saying a word. I've never felt safer. And then. I destroyed that. I know. And if I could undo it, I would. I was selfish. I chased a feeling and lost a life. And feelings? They don't pay rent once they break the roof. If there's any part of you that still sees the girl I was, I hope she's worth remembering. I'm sorry. No ask. No plea. Just that. For a second, just a second, something inside me almost softened. Not because I forgave her. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering, and choosing not to bleed twice. Not because I missed her. But because I could finally see it all clearly. She wasn't a villain. Some people don't wear horns. They just hold scissors behind their back. She was weak. She wanted more, but didn't know how to ask. So she stole it. Lied to keep it. Kept digging even after she hit the bottom, because climbing out meant admitting she was never the person she pretended to be. I folded the letter. Walked out back. Lit the grill. And burned it. Watched the flames dance around her apology like it was just another story she told too late. You don't get closure by returning. You get it when the door no longer needs locking. That was the last time I heard from her. And for once, the silence wasn't cruel. It was earned. By month 4, the air felt different. Not cleaner, just breathable. Like grief finally loosened its grip. I wasn't measuring time by how long it had been since the betrayal. I was measuring it by how many mornings I woke up and didn't feel like I was drowning in someone else's mess. Healing isn't loud. It's coffee without shaking hands. It was around then I met Harper. Not on a dating app. Not through friends. At a bookstore. Yeah, really. I was thumbing through a copy of The Stranger, something about Camus just hit different now, when she walked past and said, "Careful, that one's existential whiplash in paperback." I looked up. Simple denim jacket. Auburn hair. A laugh in her eyes that hadn't been extinguished by life yet. She didn't flirt. She just existed. After chaos, presence feels like a superpower. We talked. Then we didn't stop. Coffee turned into hours. Hours into weeks. No big moments. No sparks flying. Just calm. And after what I'd lived through, calm felt revolutionary. I didn't tell her everything right away. She didn't ask. She just said one night, "I like the way you sit with silence. Most people try to fill it." And I realized, I'd stopped performing. With her, I didn't feel like a backup singer in my own life. I didn't have to earn space. I just took up mine. But trauma has a funny way of testing you right when things start feeling human again. One night, I got a DM. From an anonymous account. Just one photo. Ashley. At a bar. Drunk. Leaning into some guy I didn't recognize. Caption. Thought you should see what your ex is up to. No context. No name. Just poison. Some people heal. Others haunt. And I stopped opening the door for ghosts. Old me would have spiraled. Checked her socials. Gone down a rabbit hole. But I didn't. I deleted it. Because that wasn't my movie anymore. Let them rerun the drama. I'm done buying tickets. Later that week, Harper and I were walking back from a late dinner. City lights behind us. Traffic humming like background noise that finally made sense. She said, "You look like someone who's been broken, but not bitter. There's beauty in wreckage that didn't rot. Just rebuilt with better bones." I laughed. "That's a hell of a compliment." She shrugged. "Most people confuse the two." I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared of being seen. We sat on my balcony that night. She asked me what I'd learned. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "Sometimes, losing what you thought was everything is how you find what you actually needed. Love isn't always arrival. Sometimes it's return, to yourself." She nodded. Didn't romanticize it. Didn't try to top it. Just said, "Yeah. That makes sense." And in that moment, it all felt simple. Not fixed. Not wrapped in a bow. But honest. I still have scars. Still wake up some mornings with a shadow on my chest. The shadow's still there. But the monster that cast it? Long gone. But they don't own me. They remind me of what I survived. Of who I became. Ashley's name doesn't sting anymore. It's just a word. Like a closed file. Archived. Not deleted, but never reopened. Some stories don't get sequels. Just lessons. And I've underlined every one. I didn't just read the pain. I studied it. And now, I write in ink it can't smudge. A few months later, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hey. Not sure if this is still yours. Just wanted to say thank you, for how you handled everything." I stared at it for a while. No name. No emojis. Just words. But I knew who it was. Sometimes, the absence of a name says more than a signature ever could. Charlotte. She didn't need to sign it. The calm in her tone, the quiet between the lines, said everything. "I'm in therapy now. The kids are doing okay. It's not perfect, but it's ours again. You didn't owe me anything. But you gave me the truth. And that saved me." I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Sometimes silence is the most complete sentence. Not every truth needs a response. Some just need space to land. It hit me later that night. I'd started this journey feeling like I was the only one who'd been burned. But fires have fallout. Smoke doesn't ask permission. It just enters whatever's nearby. Pain does the same. And when one house goes up in flames, the smoke gets in everyone's lungs. I kept moving. Work got busier. I started writing more. Journaling turned into essays. Essays turned into a blog. Nothing fancy. No healing guru nonsense. Just raw pages. Pain without filters. No hashtags. No healing arc. Just the blood and the bandages. I called it Quiet Rebuild. People started reading. Then sharing. One day, I got an email from a guy in Ohio. "Man, I read your post about the hotel door. That was my life, down to the shoes. I thought I was crazy. Thank you for proving I wasn't." Another from someone in Ireland. "Didn't even know emotional abuse could look like that until your paragraph about the stillness. Now I do. And I'm gone." And just like that, my story stopped being just mine. Harper read every piece. She never commented. Never praised. Just handed me coffee and said, "Next one's even better." She never made my healing hers. She just walked beside it. Real love doesn't perform. It accompanies. One day, we were at the farmer's market. A woman tapped me on the shoulder. "You're the Quiet Rebuild guy, right?" I blinked. Nodded. She smiled. Said, "Your words got me out of something I didn't even realize was prison." And then she walked away. Just like that. No selfie. No story time. Just impact. Back home, I stood in the kitchen, still holding a bag of peaches I didn't remember buying. Harper leaned on the counter. "You okay?" I nodded. "I just didn't think anyone was listening. You scream into the dark long enough, and when someone answers, it doesn't echo. It heals." She smiled. "They were. You just weren't ready to be heard yet." That night, I sat down at my desk. Opened a blank page. Typed. Closure isn't a finish line. It's when the story stops chasing you. Then paused. And added. Sometimes the villain is just someone who ran out of tools and picked up fire instead. And some people call it passion, when really, it's panic in disguise. I stared at those lines for a long time. Not because they were profound. But because they were true. And that made them enough. I don't know if I believe in soulmates. But I believe in second drafts. In people who don't try to erase your past, but help you rewrite the margins. And if that's not love, it's close enough to keep showing up for. Some stories don't end. They just get quieter, and softer, and safer. It was almost a year to the day when I saw her again. Not planned. Not dramatic. Just a grocery store on a Tuesday. I turned into the cereal aisle and there she was, reaching for the same box we used to argue about. For half a second, neither of us moved. Then she pulled her hand back. "Logan," she said. Just my name. No apology attached. She looked older. Not tired, just real. Like life finally called her bluff, and she answered without makeup. I nodded. "Ashley." Silence. Then she asked, "How've you been?" It was the kind of question people ask when they don't want the real answer. I just said, "Good." She smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. "I read some of your writing," she added. "You're honest." I didn't respond. Then she said, "You made me the villain." Funny how people confuse consequences with cruelty. I looked at her. Calm. Steady. "No," I said. "You made choices. I just stopped covering for them." She blinked. Bit her lip. Then, "I didn't think it would end like that." "It didn't," I replied. "It ended the day you stopped looking at me like I mattered." Some breakups don't start with shouting, they start with silence. She didn't argue. Didn't cry. Just nodded slowly and stepped back. "Take care of yourself," she said. "You too." And just like that, she turned and walked away. I didn't watch her go. Didn't replay the moment. Didn't feel anything unravel. Because the truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. She was a chapter. Not the story. You don't reread the page that taught you pain. You underline it, and turn. That night, I told Harper. Not because I needed permission to feel something, but because I didn't feel anything, and that mattered. She looked like someone trying to recognize a version of me she no longer deserved. That's the thing about growth, it makes ghosts look small. Harper just nodded. Kissed my shoulder. That's growth, she said. Not the absence of pain, just the absence of weight. We sat on the couch. Barefoot. Calm. The kind of calm you can't fake. Not the absence of noise, the presence of safety. I looked around our place. It wasn't decorated like a magazine. Nothing matched. Some walls still needed paint. But it was ours. Built from the ground up, without lies, without apologies left unsaid. No scaffolding of secrets. No cracks painted over with charm. And it felt like peace. Not the kind people post about. The real kind. The kind that doesn't ask to be noticed. Just lived in. I used to think healing would feel like closure. A door slamming shut. A line drawn. A verdict read. But it didn't. It felt like openness. Closure isn't a door slamming shut. It's a window finally staying open. Like space finally cleared for something better to move in. Like forgiveness, but for myself. I walked past the mirror that night and didn't brace for impact. Didn't brace at all. Just saw a man. Not perfect. Not finished. But free. Sometimes the most powerful ending is the one that doesn't beg to be rewritten. Some people think closure comes with confrontation. A final sit-down. A scream. A tearful handshake or a cinematic goodbye. But closure doesn't knock. It just stops showing up. But real closure? It comes when you stop needing any of that. When their name no longer takes up space in your chest. When you no longer write drafts you'll never send. I don't keep photos of us. Nostalgia is just memory with makeup. I needed the bare face. Not out of spite. But because I don't need proof that it happened. I carry what matters. The lesson. The warning. The blueprint. You don't have to keep the wreckage to remember the collapse. I don't keep ashes in jars. I plant over them. Harper once asked me, if you could go back and undo it, would you? I didn't answer immediately. Not because I didn't know. But because the truth needed time to settle. No, I finally said. I'd live it again. All of it. She tilted her head. Even the worst parts. Pain taught me more than peace ever could. Especially those. Because without the fire, I wouldn't have learned how to build without matches. Without the silence, I wouldn't have learned to speak up, even if my voice shook. And without being emptied, I never would have learned what it means to be full. There are still moments. Sometimes Harper reaches for my hand in her sleep and I flinch, instinct, not fear. Healing doesn't erase reflexes. It rewires what they mean. Sometimes I hear a voice in a crowd and it yanks me back before I remember where I am. But those echoes don't scare me anymore. They remind me I'm human. And being human means being unfinished. My story doesn't end with revenge. I don't need a villain arc. I wrote a rebuild. Or karma. Or even poetic justice. It ends quietly. With mornings that don't start in survival mode. With peace that doesn't need to be earned. The kind of peace that shows up, and stays. With love that doesn't come with disclaimers. One day, I'll tell someone the whole story. Maybe a kid. Maybe a stranger. Maybe no one. But if I do, I'll start here. There was a time I thought betrayal would break me. But all it did was break everything that wasn't real. Some people aren't soulmates, they're smoke alarms. And that's the thing about ruin. It doesn't just tear down. It clears space. For better foundations. Stronger walls. Wider windows. So if you're standing in ashes right now, wondering who you are without the person who left you there, take a breath. You're not broken. You're just under construction. Foundations don't fear fire. They rise from it.